Hello everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today I'll be doing a review of the film Vanguard, starring Jackie Chan, which will be available on Blu-ray. It'll be street date available on the 9th of March, so in just a couple of days. And so just for disclosure, I have indeed been sent a review copy of the film by Lionsgate, so shout out to Lionsgate for sending me a copy to review. However, all of the opinions of this review are my own. No one has had to approve these, and obviously how they take my review of this film is going to be up to them, but it will be available for about $25 on Blu-ray and $20 on DVD. Again, this will be available in a couple of days on physical media, and you can already pick it up on digital. However, if I was going to give you an initial thought on this movie, it would be that this film is a bit of a mess. So let me just first get out of the way the fact that this film, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be wondering, this film, in my opinion, is filled with a lot of Chinese propaganda, is what I would call it. At one point, you have at several points actually, you have reference to a Captain China, and at one point, literally a line in the movie is, Captain China could totally beat Captain America. So you seem to have these moments in the film. Some are blatant like that. There's others where there are just, a couple of moments where it just seems to, again, be really promoting China and Chinese culture, which wouldn't be a bad thing, except for the fact that a lot of these things in movies that get made in China, based in, obviously, Chinese production companies, have strong ties to the Communist Party in China, and obviously that is a bit of a problem, seeing that they are very much doing evil things, including committing genocide against the Uyghur Muslim population, and I, again, will want to always point that fact out. So I want to get that out of the way first off, that, again, this film does seem to be filled with that type of propaganda, but even without all that stuff, this movie does have a lot of problems. Let's just talk about a couple of the good things first, because just like with most movies, there's going to be at least a couple of things, a couple of good things that we can talk about. The big thing here, of course, is Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan does some pretty cool work in this. He does some pretty cool stunt work in it. Apparently, he actually almost died. There are some stunts that he does specifically on the water, and at one point he is actually riding one of these vehicles and almost got pulled under, or actually did get pulled under by the current, and they actually had to go in there and save him, and at the end of the movie they actually show you the footage of him not popping back up, which was kind of scary to actually see and witness. And then you can see all the people who are, because obviously when it comes to productions, they're going to have a lot of people ready in case these kinds of things happen, and so just to actually see it happen though was kind of, surreal in a lot of ways. And so Jackie Chan's performance I thought was pretty good. There's some other pretty interesting and pretty good, cool looking fight sequences as well. Some of the cast seem to be doing their own stunts, which is something that, of course, I always appreciate. But other than that, there really isn't a whole lot to write home about this movie, even just from an objective standpoint, right? The screenplay is very, very weak. Some of the lines are just very cringeworthy, even though a lot of the lines are given in Mandarin. Like, most of the film is in Mandarin, so you'll need subtitles on, unless you just want to guess it or the language. It's something where you can just read the lines, and it's looking almost as if, it reads almost as if you were actually just watching a film that was made for American audiences specifically, and it was just made in English, but it was made by people who are not native speakers, right? That is exactly how the subtitles read. So maybe that could be a loss in translation, but just based on the fact that it seemed to be very consistent with what the performers' emotions were at the time, I'm pretty sure that whatever it is they were trying to convey with the words at the time that I read in the subtitle, it was also true in what they were saying in their native language of Mandarin. The other reason why I'm pretty sure of this is because there are several moments when characters speak in English, and the English is just very, is not, not just that it's broken, but literally the phrasing of the people that are supposed to be more, I guess, native English speakers, though the origin point of some of the bad guys in this movie is still very much up in the air, that even those, again, just really does seem like it was written by someone who just doesn't really care all that much about telling a compelling story with writing and with compelling dialogue, right? It's very much a, hey, here's what's going on. Oh, this needs to end. Oh, this needs to stop. And it's that kind of like, start-stop dialogue with a couple of throwaway lines as well. And as I mentioned before, that one line about, well, Captain America, could be beaten by Captain China. I'm just like, whoa, okay, it's going to be that kind of a movie. Then you add on top of that they use a lot of random CGI in this movie. So you all know I'm kind of a stickler when it comes to CGI, and I will say it's actually not the worst CGI that I've ever seen as far as the images are concerned. There's actually a couple of sequences where they show a couple of lions completely CGI, and it reminded me kind of like a mixture between, I guess, Lion King quote-unquote live action by Disney would be the peak version of, real animals being portrayed as CGI, and then I would say it was somewhere between that and the lions that we saw at the end of The Greatest Showman, right, where those were just really not very well done, clearly fake. These were kind of in the middle, where they looked kind of good a little bit, but they were also still very clearly not actual lions, and you could tell that they were doing it. And so that at least made some sense, because obviously gone are the days when you would bring in actual lions and getting up close with the actors, because literally the actress is playing around with these lions, which also didn't make any sense. Again, the plot to this movie really doesn't make any sense really whatsoever. It's about Vanguard, which is a private international security agency, and they come in to try and protect a couple people, essentially, is what happens. One of the characters happens to be someone who is very much pro-wildlife and is spending time with lions in Africa somewhere. But yeah, so you have moments like that where the CGI, you're like, okay, this kind of makes sense. This is what movies have been doing for a long time now. And again, I think it's an unfortunate thing, because I think that as long as we can somehow make things work with real life animals and real life effects and practical effects, we probably should. But then you have other random sequences as well, where literally chase sequences, kind of bread and butter for stunt teams, where you essentially have them be completely CGI. Like there's times in which there is this really, what could have been a really cool chase sequence, when there is this limousine doing some pretty cool, like doing reverse and then doing crazy spins and everything, but it's very clearly a CGI vehicle. And there's a couple of moments where you're just like, wait, most of this chase that I'm looking at right now is completely CGI. Now, it could very well be that this is because of COVID. As it says right here, it was originally scheduled to be released on the 25th of January, but was delayed because of COVID. But that seems to indicate, based on that time frame, that it was at least filmed before COVID time, which means they would have had plenty of time to actually film those sequences without having to rely on going CGI. And so it really is kind of this mixed bag of a couple of cool fight sequences, which also, even in themselves, aren't always that good either. Right? I say that there's some good fight sequences, and that's true, especially anytime that Jackie Chan is on screen, but one, he's underutilized, so he's not really in the movie as much, right? He's front and center of this poster, but the people behind him are really featured more in the film than he is, so that's one. And then two, in one fight sequence, I laughed out loud because of how absurd it was. One character essentially just takes a fire extinguisher and throws it at the other person. Now, that would be kind of a cool effect if it, hit them in the head, he threw it really hard, etc. But instead, what he does is he essentially tosses it over to him. And then it's not that the thing hits him in the head and then he acts like he got hit, right, and he does that stunt. Instead, it's that he literally is seen catching it and falling, as if somehow, some way, this fire extinguisher weighed about 1,000 pounds more than what it should have, and it was quite laughable. Now, normally when I watch movies, I tend not to notice those kinds of things, right? So I know that, for instance, with The Last Jedi, there were a lot of people who broke down a lot of the fight sequences in there, especially the one where Kylo Ren and Rey team up, and how there's a couple of moments just make no sense whatsoever. That's the kind of stuff where I missed that the first time that I watched it. This is something, though, where it was so clearly odd and it was so clearly nonsensical. Again, a fire extinguisher, which I'm not going to say is not a heavy thing, not a heavy object, right? It has a job to do, so you need to have all the stuff in there. But the fact that it was just tossed over, and it wasn't that they could have made it where it, hit the guy in the head or hit him when he wasn't looking or made him stumble. It literally looked like he caught a giant boulder or rock that just made him crumple to the ground because he physically couldn't handle it. It was one of the most absurd sequences of the fight sequences in the entirety of the movie itself. So yeah, this movie, again, hot mess. Even the fight sequences and the action sequences really can't save the really subpar plot, the really bad dialogue in between. Again, not just with the dialogue that we have to read through subtitles, but especially in the English language that we have to listen to as well with some of these characters. It doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. And yeah, this was a movie I was actually quite excited about because I honestly thought that it was going to be pretty badass. I remember when the trailer came out for it and was so pumped, so excited. It was like on my anticipated list for the year for this film to come out because of just how much I'm a huge fan of Jackie Chan. The last major film that I saw him in was The Foreigner, which I thought was a fantastic movie, very well done with a lot of really cool sequences. And that one especially had some pretty good writing. This one, on the other hand, really wasn't quite there. Apparently, this is the 6th time that Stanley Tong, who was the director, has worked with Jackie Chan, so I'm kind of interested to see what other films he has made, as far as just, kind of like to look back at what he has. So he did actually some films that are pretty, I guess, well-known in the Jackie Chan I guess you could say a lexicon. He did Police Story 3, Rumble in the Bronx. He did a Mr. Magoo film. He did Police Story 4. Again, a couple of these films, I honestly don't know much about them because I'm not as much of an expert on Jackie Chan's work as much as I would like to be. But I just do find this kind of interesting. So this guy is a Hong Kong film director, producer, action choreographer, screenwriter, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. 60 years old, very young for a director, having already done so many things in his life. Pretty crazy stuff. But this one definitely is a miss. If I had to give this film a grade, I'd probably just give it a solid D. Again, if you like mindless action, sometimes that makes sense, then okay, this might be a film for you. There's one moment where a guy is literally on like this hoverboard-like thing shooting a gun. I thought that was kind of interesting. There's this whole siege event that happens when they're trying to get a couple people who have been kidnapped back, which I thought was pretty cool. But in the end, this film is quite a bore. The editing, not very well done. Again, kudos to the stunt team. Kudos to Jackie Chan for risking his life. Again, as I said earlier, risking his life to do some of the action sequences on this movie. It just sadly did not translate over into a very competent movie. But anyway, those are my thoughts on Vanguard. Have you seen Vanguard? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, smash that like button. It really does mean a lot. Please check me out over on Minds.com and over on Odyssey as well. If you are tired of YouTube, if you're tired of free speech being limited by this platform, and if you just want to have an alternative platform to watch videos on, I recommend Minds.com and Odyssey as great alternatives. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my March Patreon members: Andrew Hoyle, Animation Commentator, Brian P., Divex, Enrique Evangelista, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father, Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, The Honky Chonky Funky Monkey, Inflamed Wood, It's a Trap Productions, Jason Clark, Jacob Juice, Jay, Jeffrey Toon, Jonathan Carney, Laura, the Modern Major General Story, Mike Jackson, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin with the beautiful hair, on to June, Orange Hat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Priscilla Hall, Riff Magos, Rosetta Allen, Steve Glasker, Teresa Martin, Theodore Benden, Tina Bojan, and of course the Empress of the Universe, Tina B. Thank you all very much for being my Patreon members. And now a shout out to all of my Subscribe Star members: Stan 4, John B., Perpetual Punster, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss / the new number 2, J-Rod the Beer Guru, Nebanon G. Adams, and ZK Man. And Dion, thank you all so very much for being my Subscribe Star members, and to everyone who has been supportive of the channel. Of course, a shout out to my YouTube members, and you all know that you get your special perks every single time that we do a live stream, so thank you again for your support. If you want to have your name shouted out at the end of every single live stream and at the end of every single video, please check out the links in the description below to become a Patreon or Subscribe Star member today. You're going to also get access to things at the upper tiers, like a bi-weekly podcast that I do with my friend John the Flick Pick Flickinger. We also, of course, have a Chosen of Valhalla live stream once a month where me and my Chosen come together on this channel to talk about whatever it is that they want to talk about. So anyway, if all that stuff sounds interesting to you, please check out the links below. You guys are amazing, beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless.